Hi, welcome to this episode. My intention here is to introduce PHP to you. I'm expecting that you have no prior knowledge of PHP, or you had it maybe, or you read some tutorials here and there, but you've not been able to know how to go about it or how to even use it practically on a real website. So if you've been following up to this level, you could have been able to build an entire website, portfolio website for yourself. And you might want over time to maintain that site, to make some changes here and there and improve it. In fact, at this stage we could see that our project is not responsive yet. So if we visit our website and we try to preview it on the small devices, you could see that it will break on some pages. So it is not responsive, but that is a subject of another video series. So for now, we'll assume that we are okay with this. So the next thing is to think about how we are going to make maintaining our project easier. And also, if we are to use PHP, what is it coming for? How is it coming in? How do we use it? So I think one of the main reasons why you might think about PHP is the actual contact form. So this form right now, as you see it, does not do much. So even if you fill the data, the form with some content and submit, it won't go anywhere. Nothing happens, because all this happens simply because HTML by default does not have any mechanism to transfer a message from your machine or from your server to another server. So we need another thing or another language that has that capability built in it. So, and that's where PHP comes in. So PHP, what is it exactly? So PHP is a programming language, a general purpose programming language. This basically means it can be used to build anything. So literally anything, a website, a command line application, even sometimes desktop applications, and so on. So it is used for many reasons, and that's why it is called multi-purpose programming language. But it is mainly known for its use in building websites, and that's why PHP is almost on all single web server that exist on the internet. So our goal here is not to really go in depth in learning PHP. I don't want that approach where I start by saying do this, echo this, command this. No, I don't want to do that. I just want us to make something practical, real with it, and based on that, whatever snippet of PHP we bring in, that you know what that does and you can replicate this without having to think too much. But the only requirement, the only thing you need to think about, or the only thing you need to do in order for us to be able to achieve that, is that you need to have PHP installed on your machine, because you must have the big PHP mechanism around your website for the website to be able to use PHP to work. So you will go and look for a PHP installer or a setup. So but that will be too complicated. There are simple things I would like you to install. The first one is WAMP. So you Google WAMP and you can see WAMP server download. So if you can get WAMP server installed, it is great. It is simple. It's one package that comes with all the elements you need to use PHP, right? So that's the first one. The second one is Laragon, which I use. So if you install Laragon, don't worry, this is my antivirus warning me. So you can install Laragon, and then you can have all the elements you need to run PHP. An example is this. So basically, to run PHP, you need Apache, you need Apache or Nginx, you need MySQL, you need PHP itself, and maybe some other things. But the most important thing is the Apache or Nginx. So you can take one or the other. Then MySQL for the databases. So this comes with databases, and then the PHP language engine itself. That's the actual code that is able to interpret your PHP code and recognize it as a PHP code. That is called the PHP engine. So here you can see the engine is version 8. So once you install it, you download it, you do the installation, it's just next, and you have it, and then you end up with something like this. Let me start up my Laragon and see Laragon. So here it is. So in normal situation, it should start automatically. So it is started here. So once you have it installed, you have something like this. So just make sure that this is showing stop. If it is not showing stop, it will show start all services. So it will basically start the Apache web server MySQL database and get it ready for you. So once it is started, you can close it. It will run in the background, so you don't have to worry. But the most important thing, after installation, you need to look at is the folder where it is installed. So in general, it will be installed on your local drive C, and then it will create a folder called Laragon. The same thing with WAMP. If you have WAMP or LAMP or ZAMP, they will usually have a folder on your local drive C, and then once you open that folder, you will have a folder called either www or local web. I think it is either www or public or yes, something similar. So something similar where you can now put your project. So in our case here, you can see that I have my project placed inside this subfolder. So all these are websites. So this particular folder contains the portfolio project, which is here. So you bring it here, and that's it. So once you do that, your site is ready to handle PHP. So the next thing you will need to do is PHP does not run inside HTML files. If you remember our CSS, it was running right inside our HTML files, and we could include it or use it inline like this, or we embed it. That was fine, and the CSS will just work. But with PHP, things are a little bit different. So the first thing you need for PHP to work is that your file extension must be .php. So where we have .html must be changed into .php. So if we do that, so we are going to rename our files and change this into .php. Note, any file that is .php is also an HTML document. So it means it is able to handle HTML as like normal .html file. So basically, it is not a problem to simply rename your file into .php if it is an HTML file. Even if there's no PHP code inside that HTML that file, still, and you have your HTML code, that HTML code will run smoothly just like inside a .html file. So once that's done, if we now try to preview our website, of course it should fail because we are trying to visit .html, which does not exist anymore, because our menu is having or is pointing to all the files into .html. So normally, if we change this into .php, we should expect something. Boom! And what happened? Nothing happens. It brings us our code. Instead of running the HTML and down the browser to interpret it, it did not interpret it. And we'll explain what happened there. But before, let's go and at the home page where we have the .htmls, we'll use .php. .php. Great. So I won't go and change it on the other files because that's one of the problems we want to solve. Modifying at one place and then have the modifications applied all over the other pages. So we'll just modify it here first. So, and it is part of the problems we want to solve with our PHP. It's one of the reasons why we are using PHP. So we want to be able to remove repetitive parts like the header and footer. So like this header here, we should be able to have it once and then it should be applied across the remaining pages. To achieve that, we need PHP to make it. The second thing, we need to program this to send. Need a program to send the contact message. On our contact page, we need a way of sending the message to the owner, to the portfolio's owner's email. Then we also need to automate the copyright date. So if you remember the copyright, we have a date at the footer, which is 2023 for now. So if you host the website as it is, you see that in 2024 it will still be showing 2023. So you have to go in and then modify the code again and go through all the pages and then start changing the date. No, we need to make that automated. So on the 1st of January 2024 at 12 o'clock 000, then your site should automatically change it into 2024 copyright. So these are the 3 tasks we are going to achieve using PHP. So before that, let's continue getting PHP to work with our website. So what have we done so far? If you followed well, by now you could have had Laragon installed, or WAMP or XAMPP, and you have your project folder moved to the web folder of the web root of that application, either Laragon or WAMP. So, and then your project, your file extensions have been updated to .php. And now if you try to visit your website .php, it does not work. So what happened? Why is it not working? So basically what happens is this. So we'll quickly brush on how PHP works. So you have your website, the browser here. Then on the browser, you type www to try to visit a website. Then the browser makes a demand to this website, to the server that is hosting. We call that hosting. The server that is keeping. So let me say server keeping your site. So it's keeping the site. So when you put it on that server, that's called hosting. Would you see that? So once you keep it there, and any user makes a request, so it can be many users using their browsers in different angles. It might be from a small phone or so. So once they make the request, it will demand to the server, find me the file. If you are visiting the home page, it will say send me the home page, and the server now will go through and see the home page and send it back. So it will send it back, send the actual code. Then the browser will read that code and then start interpreting the code and bring back whatever is there and lay out the website. So the same thing will happen with any other user and so on. But when the file is a .php file, not a .html file, the server does not try to reply automatically. Rather, it looks for a PHP server. So it will look for the PHP engine. Remember that PHP 8 I was telling you the engine about. So the actual engine, the actual PHP engine is installed actually inside the same server. So even if I'm extending it like this, it is still inside the same server. So this is the PHP engine, right? So it will now forward that file to the PHP engine, and then the PHP engine now will do the interpretation and now tell the browser, the server, okay, this is the result. Now take that result. The type of that result now is a text file or an HTML file. Now you can forward it back to the browser. So in our case, we could not get the PHP server. Our site did not connect to the PHP server, and now the server too could not recognize the .php we sent because it is not .html. It could not recognize it, therefore it returned the same .php file. Therefore the browser could not recognize the language inside, and that just assumed that it is a .txt content, is simply a text content, and therefore displaying plain text on the page. And that's what happened, and we have this. So how do we make the server now communicate with the PHP server? So in order to do that, Laragon by default, if you did not put your project in a subfolder like I did, so what I'm trying to say is, if you put your project folder right here like this ones, right? If you place it right here, you can type the name in our case. Okay, I think let me even do that so that you can see. So let me go to tutorials, copy that folder, bring it at the root here. So you can see now it is at the root. So if I want to access that project, all I have to do is type port, the same name of the folder, portfolio dot test. By default, Laragon will give you that extension. So let me make sure my naming is okay. So portfolio.test. Okay, it doesn't come up. Let me restart it. So we do stop all services. So it is stopping. So now it will show me start all. It means all the services are stopped. So start all. So by doing that, Laragon might now be able to detect that folder and then create the local server for it. So I should be able to now refresh. Exactly. So now I refresh. The now server is the Apache server, the web server is able now to forward the page to PHP 8 engine, and PHP 8 engine was able to interpret it and return it to the browser, and the browser is able to run it properly. So you can see that it runs normally just like a website. You can see that our links are broken here, so it's only at the home page we have changed into PHP. Okay, so now you can see it works smoothly. So that's the first way of running it. So assuming you don't want to run it that way, so in my case I don't want to have the folder here, I want it to reside under that tutorials folder. So if I delete and I go back to the tutorials folder and then I look at this one, how do I get it running from here? So you can use what we call the PHP inbuilt in PHP server. So the inbuilt PHP server. So to make that run, we can use the command line. So I'll run a command line. I'm using this cmda to run commands, right? So I will now browse to this location. So I'll browse from the command line. So that's, you open a folder and then you open another folder, you open the folder to the the extent that you get to the folder you are looking for. In our case, we are looking forward to reaching this particular folder. So how do? We do cd, which is change directory to this particular directory. So go to this particular directory. We go to the directory. If you do ls, you see that it will list all the files that are inside that directory. So at that point, what you do is, at the moment you installed Laragon and everything, it has installed a particular PHP command called PHP. So if you run this command here, it will recognize it. So let's say version, I guess that's it. So you see, it will recognize that command PHP, that small portion of P and the H and the P, as a code, as a command that is able to run something. And you can see that it tells you that the engine is the version 4, right? So by running that command, and you see this, it means it exists. So while we are located in our folder here, we'll just run php dash capital S localhost. So we want to run it on the localhost server. Laravel has already provided that localhost server for us. Laragon, sorry, Laravel. So Laragon has already provided us with that domain, which is localhost. On that domain, we want it to run on the port 8888, or you can choose any port you want, like 8080, or if you want 9090, or if you want 9000. So as it has to be one of the ports that are used on the computers, 65,000 something ports. So it's another topic. So let's go with 888 and you press enter, and that's all. So now the server is running, the development server is running on this address. So it's my phone. Good. So now the application is running on this address. So all we have to do is to type that address like we did here. So I think I can use this one. So we say localhost colon 8888, enter, and then we have the site again. So usually you might be doing this when you are building PHP. You'll be doing this often, so by using your local server. So here we are, we have connected our application to PHP, and now it can recognize PHP code. So let's start executing our tasks, which is to remove repetitive parts, and this is your first class to PHP. So what does PHP actually looks like? What does it look like? It's simple. The PHP code is as this. Before you put anything that can be considered as PHP by the PHP engine, it has to be in between open left chevron, which is less than sign, question mark, the term PHP, and then whatever you write here is considered as PHP. Then you can optionally close it with this. That's all. So that's all. If your file contains only PHP, you don't even need this part. But if there are some other things like here you have some HTML, then it is advised you close it like this, and that's it. So whatever is here is assumed to be PHP. So let's try it and see if indeed our page, particularly our index page, can recognize PHP. So I'll go right under the footer here and then try to insert some PHP code. So we do this. So you can see that we are having the li issue I mentioned here. We can see that there's one li here that is not closed. That's why it is suggesting that. So if I go back again to my PHP idea, I go right under the footer, I open the left hand side PHP, then I can close it here. So you can see that when I don't close it, it changes the colors of the following text because there's an error. It will signal an error. So now once I do that, what can we do with PHP? We can do so much things. Like it is a general purpose language, so there are limitless things we can do. So the basic thing we can do with PHP is to display something on the screen. So one example of displaying something is using the function called echo. So you write echo and you can see it is suggesting it to me. I can use with a bracket like this or use with the quote like you can see here. So I just do echo like this with quote and I say, hello, I am Jalil Ali, and that's it. Or you can write it like this with bracket. It's the same thing, right? So once you do that, by refreshing our website, we should see something right here. Exactly. So that's it. So this actually was built after the PHP, our code went through the PHP engine, and the PHP engine has been able to interpret this code and then just bring in this element. One beauty thing with PHP, since it assumes to be an HTML page, it means I could do this. It means I could take the whole, let's say, header like this whole header, and then say PHP, right? I'm looking for the shortcut. So I could do PHP, and then imagine I could say rather that echo all this. I can use single quote, all this header. So anything related to our header, we do echo. So it's now PHP that will be able to interpret this code and now bring it back to the browser. And you can see it still works. We have the header there with all its content, although it is generated through PHP. So you can echo even the whole page. So it means you can build the whole page using PHP. So the HTML now is like a chain of strings. You are just echoing and you get your page as it is. but that is not too advantageous right now. What we are interested in is to make it easy. PHP has one feature which is very interesting. We could separate files and then combine them. So we can break a file into small portions and then combine them, so making it easy to maintain these small portions individually, and then the whole thing comes together to work as a whole. So what we want to do is to take off this header, since it is repeating all over the place, and then we'll put it in a file. We'll create a new file. We'll call the header, Control S, then we say header.php. remember, now we are working with .php, not HTML. So .php. inside that header, I'm going to place this code, only this HTML. Note, I did not use any echo, it's just plain HTML. So let's go ahead. Here we are going to use a particular function in PHP, which is to require. If you either use require to require a file, or include to include a file at this particular location, include a given file at a particular location. So we need to specify the location of the file. Of course, we should not forget to put it inside PHP, otherwise it will not recognize it as PHP code. So once we open the PHP code, we will say now include. So I'll use include because it makes more sense. Include what? In quote, the header.php file. This looks like the way we use the link tag to bring in our CSS. So the same thing we do here. We rather include any file. So by doing so, we should have the same site showing up. So you see, the header has been picked up from this header.php file, although we did not put any PHP file. Remember, PHP files are also HTML files, so it can simply have only HTML code. So we bring that file in here, and that is it. It inserts the header again. So imagine if we do that on the remaining pages. So we come to the about, we remove all this HTML code, we replace it with just include header.php. We go to contact, we remove this header, we replace it with include header.php. Then we've done it for the index, so we do it for the works. So we remove this whole header, then we replace it with include. What happens if I refresh? I have my home page. If I pass the mouse on the links, you can see now at the bottom right here, at the bottom here, at the left angle, you can see that the pages are showing the actual pages in .php. Remember, we did not change that menu on other pages. So it means the single menu located in the header.php file is now being accessed on all other pages without us having to worry ourselves. So in that case, whenever we make any change on this header file here, it is going to be applied to all the headers throughout our pages. An example, if I want to prove that, if I add some CSS here by saying background color, let's say background color, and we say purple, you could see that not only it will happen at the home page, sorry, we haven't changed this link, it will also apply on the remaining pages. So this makes it maintainable. So we've removed this repetition of the heading part. So now let's do the same thing for the footer part. But before that, let's also update our header here, which is the heading 1. And you can see if we do this change here, which is index, it should be index.php. It should be changed on all the menus throughout the pages. So wherever I am, if I click on the name now, it should bring me to the index. So this is easy for maintenance, and this is one of cool ways of using PHP, right? So let's do the same thing for the footer. So since we know the footer code, we can get it here. So let's get the footer code. So let me start from the index so that it's easy for us to get the idea. So I'll pick the footer here, I'll remove it, I'll go and create a new file. We'll name it with Control S. So we say footer.php. Then in here we just paste the footer code, we arrange it well so that it's easy to maintain. Then once that's done, we can now come back at the index page and then open our PHP section. Inside our PHP section, we'll call our include function, which is part of PHP, and we'll ask it to bring us the footer.php file content right at this location. Bring us the content of the footer.php file right at this location. So by doing so, we are now distributing our footer from one place to all the places. So we do the same thing on the remaining pages. That's the only hard work we do. Just make sure you place that there, and then it should be available all over the place. So this is not well folded. Right, so move it, and we are good to go. So now we have our header, we have our footer, we have our header. So if I refresh, we should have our header all over our footer all over the place. So if I go on the about, we should still see the footer, and it is available. So the next thing, so we are done with these ones. Let me tick them just for the joy purpose, right? So the next thing is to automate our copyright, and that's where comes our fantastic advantage of excluding some of these portions and avoiding their repetition. The date is located at the footer, and we know we have a footer page now which contains the content for the footer. So if you want to change it, this part of the footer to be automated, we have to do it right inside the footer page, and it will apply on the remaining pages. So to do that, we use the PHP, we insert our PHP section. So insert PHP section. Once you insert it like this, now you call, so let me break the line so that we see it clearly, line by line. So we call the echo function. Of course, the echo functions allows us to display something. So we can now display anything. So let's say 2024, and then we add semicolon. PHP functions, anytime you call them, you need to add a semicolon. So we call it and we make it like that, and let's see what we have. So if I refresh, I should be able to refresh from any page and see the change. Exactly, see, that's it here, because the footer is now available on all pages. So it should be updated like that. But at this point, you might tell me, guy, you are cheating, man. You wrote this 2024 yourself. We want to see it dynamic. We want it to handle itself. So to make that happen, so we do the echo, but instead of printing what we call a constant, that is a constant date. So enter a constant string date. Instead of me to do that, or no, I would rather ask PHP to use its date function, echo your date function, and then in your date function, I am interested in one particular parameter, which is the year, capital Y. So find the system, the server date, and then in the date, pick just the year and bring it and echo it. So display it. And by the way, the echo function, you also have an alternative called print, and I think this sounds actually what what it does, which is to print on the screen. So if we now preview our site, we should see that we are now getting 2023, because that's the actual year we are in. So as soon as we move to 2024, this is going to be changed automatically, and it's available on all the pages. So now as a developer, your clients don't have to call you and be like, oh, can you change the copyright date? It's still showing 2023. I have these cases. So that is it. So we've gone through a little bit of how to get PHP working on our website, how to install it, how to test some of its functions, and we'll use some of the benefits of PHP to actually handle the repetitive parts of our code, and then also the copywriting. I tick the program to send the contact message, but I think we should rather untick this and then move it to a different video, because I'm seeing this one is getting longer. So let's check that out in the next video and meet you there. Thank you so much for watching, and kindly consider liking the video, subscribing, pausing your asking questions, making your suggestions on what we should bring to you as content. Thank you so much.